Wilson studio here on Market Street. So glad that you joined us Friday morning. Let's get right into it. There's a lot to cover this morning. I know I say it every morning, but I actually mean it this morning. Let's go to some viewer comments. We also have some updates from yesterday's program and really this whole week's programs. First off, some viewer comments. This happened right at the end of yesterday's program, and I never miss an excuse to bring up some kind words. Thanks, Frank. Another great show in the books. Have a great day. Well, I did. I hope you had a great day as well, and thank you. I thought yesterday's show was exceptional, as today's will be. Another comment. Democrats are fiction writers with no concept of reality. Thank you very much. And then this comment from early this morning. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Trump's tariffs can rock and roll again, and I turned 64 today. Well, congratulations, Mark. Here we go. I haven't done this in a while. Boom, celebrating. Happy birthday to Mark, everyone, who is such a helpful part of the program. Sends in great comments, so thank you, Mark, for the comment this morning, and I hope you have a very happy birthday. Yes, Trump's tariffs are back on after the appeals court slammed the brake on the trade court's ban. Are you keeping this all straight? Do you have a chart at home? It's like ping pong. A federal appeals court put the brakes on a lower court order that overturned most of Trump's sweeping tariffs from Liberation Day. Now, if you recall, the Court of International Trade, which was a 3-judge panel, ruled that Trump exceeded his authority, okay? Well, yesterday, a full 11-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit stayed that order until an appeal is heard. The tariffs have been challenged by a dozen states and 5 small businesses, which the appeals panel gave until June 5th to respond to Thursday's stay. Now, Wall Street shrugged off the about face with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing up 117 points, the NASDAQ rising almost 75 points, and the S&P 500 gaining more than 23 points. Now, Trump, in typical Trump fashion, slammed the trade court's ruling as horrific and a threat to presidential power. I think there is a point to be made there. No matter what you think, you may not like Trump. You may not have voted for Trump. You may not like the tariffs. I know polls show that the tariffs are very unpopular. But just as with everything that Trump does, to have what is considered activist judges consistently, I guess, asserting power over the president is a very bad precedent. We talked about it yesterday where, of course, this was not done during the Biden administration. This is another maybe part of that larger picture of lawfare that has been used against Trump from his first term, going all the way back to his first term. Trump taking to Truth Social, saying, where do these initial 3 judges come from? How is it possible for them to have potentially done such damage to the United States of America? Under this decision, trillions of dollars will be lost by our country, describing the ruling country-threatening and so wrong and so political. He expressed hope that the Supreme Court quickly and decisively takes up the case and rules in his favor. The pause will not affect the negotiations in any way if people are out there in the world simply looking at the court decision, said Peter Navarro. The court was clear, as I said, that the president has broad authority to impose tariffs. Navarro continued, this morning we are getting plenty of phone calls from countries saying we saw the rule, and so what we're going to continue to do is negotiate in good faith. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent blasted the ping pong match between the judges, calling them highly inappropriate. It seems highly inappropriate for the judiciary to weigh in here when the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and did not. In terms of separation of powers, the Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S. arguing anything the courts do to get in the way harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue, the latter of which he described as substantial. Now, the White House did warn earlier yesterday that it would seek emergency relief from the Supreme Court as soon as today. It argued that the initial decision wrongly intruded upon Trump's executive authority. And I think that's the case in many of these instances. You start to wonder how there can be enough lawyers in the country when you have the activist judges essentially saying that they have more power than the person overwhelmingly elected by the people of the United States. The White House, specifically Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, said the judges brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him. She called on the High Court to overturn the ruling, claiming the judges are threatening to undermine the credibility of the United States on the world stage. The administration has already filed an emergency motion for a stay pending appeal, an immediate administrative stay to strike down this erroneous decision. But ultimately, the Supreme Court must put an end to this for the sake of our Constitution and our country. So there's a lot about this, a lot of talking heads weighing in on this, a lot of opinion pieces. We're going to talk about it a little more extensively later on in the program. I don't want to give all of it away, just sort of the breaking news to kick off the program. But there's a few pieces here, even by what you would consider more conservative op-ed writers, saying that, and I just read the headlines, we'll get to them later on in the program, but I want to hear your opinion on it. The White House should take court setback as a chance for a reset on tariffs, or Charles Gasparino says, Trump, take the win. The court gave you a way to stop the terrible tariffs. Do you agree? Do you disagree? So we are going to talk about that more extensively either later in this hour or at the top of the next hour. We do have a lot of updates. We're going to talk about, here's one. Here's an update, which we may talk about more as well. But Elon Musk is finished in his official role in the Trump administration. But Trump signaled kind of a different message yesterday, saying, I'm having a press conference tomorrow, meaning today, at 1:30 with Elon Musk at the Oval Office. This will be his last day, but not really, because he will always be with us, helping all the way. Elon is terrific. So we look forward to that press conference. Again, that is at 1:30 today. Now, it's always been, no matter what media outlet you go to, and we've reported it here extensively, and I think really ahead of the curve in many instances, that has always been a 130-day limit by law for a, quote, special government employee. And that's exactly what Elon Musk is. So we always knew, and I always thought it was May 30th. This just confirms it, that would be his 130-day mark. So when the media tries to present it, and I saw it in the New York Times just the other day, again, one of the outlets, and we're going to talk about the media a little bit later on as well, but reporting it as if, that's it for Musk because now Trump hates him, or Musk hates Trump, or trying to create drama where there is no drama, because by law, Musk was done after 130 days, which, by the way, it's hard to believe it's been 130 days. Well, in some ways it seems longer, some ways it seems shorter. He was appointed in January to head Doge. Musk posted, as you recall, I mentioned on the program yesterday, as my scheduled time as special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. Now, Carolyn Leavitt, and do you know who Ty Cobb is? Do you remember that name? Not the baseball player. The lawyer. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on when we discuss tariffs more in depth. But he had the audacity to call Carolyn Leavitt creepy. Explain that one to me. The hatred of Trump is so prevalent from these people that they make nonsensical statements. I mean, you may not like Carolyn Leavitt, especially if you're not a Trump supporter. Press secretaries of both parties, if it's a Democrat press secretary, you say, wow, that they're all lies, or Republicans, they're all lies. It depends on the party affiliation you have. I get that. That's a kind of the nature of that job, is to do public relations. And people don't always like that. But to call her creepy is, well, rude, of course, at face value, but wrong. It kind of blows your mind. I don't even know where it comes from. But she said yesterday, the Doge leaders are each and every member of the president's cabinet and the president himself, who is wholeheartedly committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from our government. There's such, and I know we talk about a lot on the program, but there is, the media twists itself up into these pretzels in a way because of their hatred of Trump. There's actually a piece that, again, we'll get to a little bit later on, that they hate Doge so much. It's created such a hatred that the left has now turned on electric vehicles, shockingly enough. But there's a piece that they, I would almost say, had to fabricate. The Doge is actually going to cost taxpayers more than save. It's all so predictable. It's all so sad. And now we see the threats coming from Democrats. And this is an indication of something you should think about if you're thinking of voting Democrat in the future. Representative Suhas Subramanyam. Did I pronounce that right? Absolutely not. He accused Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency of committing crimes. This was on MSNBC. Now, Representative Subramanyam, a Democrat from Virginia, was asked by Simone Sanders, let's talk about Elon Musk. I've seen a lot of headlines, Congressman, over the last 24 hours. Elon Musk's exit, and you notice she called him Congressman and didn't mention his last name. We're on the same page on that. He is leaving Washington, but I think that Elon Musk is just finished. I have not heard a lot of Democrat elected officials talk about the data. Elon Musk and his Doge peeps, if you will, they installed servers within the White House complex. They were integral within the Office of Presidential Personnel, which has tentacles out into every single agency. They are inroads into every single agency. Now that Doge was in there and the servers, I don't think they have left the White House. So what are Democrats going to do about the data? Are you all going to follow up on this? That's when Representative Subramanyam said, yeah, I heard he's on some image repair tour. I think the best way for people to repair his image, I think the best way for him to repair his image is to reverse all the damage he did to our government, to the American people. Yeah, those servers are a big issue. We want to continue to investigate that. And certainly, I think some crimes may have been committed over the past 3 or 4 months, and they are going to come to light one way or another, even if it takes us getting into power again. But we will subpoena people and find out. So threatening Musk and his crew, because how dare you volunteer your time, your equity to root out waste, fraud, and corruption. That's not how things are done in Washington. That's not how it's done in Washington in general. A lot of people are benefiting from that waste, fraud, and corruption. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Here's the threat that if we get back in power, we will be going after Elon Musk with the full force of the government. Keep that in mind. But we do have some other kind of updates, if you will, on Doge, on Elon Musk, and many other topics as well. I'm running a little bit late, just kicking off the program. But yes, the tariff ping pong match with the judiciary is in full swing. We'll go in depth on that a little bit later on in the program. Now, this morning, because it has been such a busy week, not just guest-wise, but news-wise, that I did leave this episode for just you and I to have time to chat, to have the conversation. So there is no Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program, no interview, but we always thank Steuben County Office for the Aging, who are committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence, for being such an important part of the program. One other thing before we go to break, and I know you're going to be interested in this. Yesterday, I think you could kind of call the program tariffs and 700 cows. And what that means is, if you weren't tuned in, you're probably confused. In Albany, there are one assembly person, and one state senator, who, one from Manhattan, one from Brooklyn, who want to limit how many cows you can have on your farm. So there's a special permit that you get if you have more than 700 cows. That's kind of bureaucracy in a nutshell. Of course, there's a special permit if you have more than 700 cows. Well, these representatives, if you will, want to ban that permit. So no farm can have over 700 cows. They say it's for, of course, the environment. They say it's for small businesses in some way. Because obviously, if anybody knows farming, it's two people one from Manhattan, one from Brooklyn. Well, we had quite a lengthy discussion on it yesterday, got a lot of people riled up, and rightfully so. Well, I saw in my email a nice note from Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, and he's weighing in on it, and we're going to get to that later on in the program. You're going to want to hear exactly what he had to say about that proposal, about that potential bill. Some other updates when we come back. Here's one that's always, you can tell it's a Friday because we jump around a lot. Here's one when we come back. An update on one Mr. Anthony Weiner. So stay with us. Actually, please don't turn the dial just because I said that. But I will give you a quick update. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Look at that picturesque view of historic Market Street in the Gaffer District here. Thank you to Boss Security for bringing us that view. Visit Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Mark writes in, so Musk volunteering his time and saving taxpayers' money is a crime? What will the Democrats think of next? Totally ridiculous. Yeah, there is a real hatred for Elon Musk and anyone associated with the Trump administration. And Elon Musk, if you remember, was at one time really what's the word I'm looking for? Something that that the liberals really liked and supported. They liked Elon Musk. They obviously liked his electric vehicles. Now there's a hatred for him, and people are having, even Chris Cillizza, who is a far left quote unquote journalist, had his Tesla keyed or vandalized. It is out of control. Oh, one other thing before we talk about Anthony Weiner. Trump met with Fed Chair Jerome Powell yesterday at the White House. According to Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, the president pushed Powell to lower interest rates at the in-person meeting, their first since the inauguration. A Federal Reserve spokesperson said Powell did not discuss his expectations for monetary policy, apart from the fact that decisions will be based on careful, objective, and non-political analysis. Trump has pressured Powell to lower rates for months, going as far as threatening to fire him, though the Supreme Court recently signaled the president can't do that. Powell and the Fed have so far held rates steady this year amid the ongoing tariff turmoil, says that piece. Okay, I don't understand Anthony Weiner. I don't think any of us do. But here's a guy who has destroyed his career, his life, numerous times, and he just can't stop himself. And he's running for New York City Council, where it all began, where he started. And you know he was in jail for inappropriate, we'll say, texts that he was sending to a 15-year-old girl. So you would think you would keep quiet on certain issues, but not disgraced ex-Congressman Anthony Weiner. He was giving an interview on a podcast where he said to the host, Adam Friedland, "For sure, my goodness, they're crazy about me. Women are crazy about me," said the registered sex offender. The question was if women find powerful men, such as politicians, attractive. And again, Anthony Weiner, registered sex offender, disgraced former congressman, can't move on. He needs the world to know that for sure they're crazy about me. Women are crazy about me. Now, after he served a stint in prison again for that texting scandal with a 15-year-old girl, Weiner is now running in the Democrat primary for council in Manhattan's East Side District 2. Now, Weiner also said on the podcast that his tabloid scandal wouldn't even crack the top 100 of salacious stories in the current high-tech social media environment. Weiner said it was a slow news cycle then, and quipped that his last name didn't help matters. Then he cussed a little bit, so I'm not going to read his exact quote on that one. But he argued that Matt Gaetz' story is worse. And man, he swore a lot in this interview. He was trying to make a lot of jokes, and I don't know. They all fall flat to me, but that's what he was trying for. If you've never read Andrew Breitbart's book, the late Andrew Breitbart, Righteous Indignation, he was the one that broke the original scandal. There's been so many scandals with Anthony Weiner, but the original one with certain pictures being sent out. And so Andrew Breitbart gets that information, reports on it, and it becomes a scandal. So Anthony Weiner goes to hold a press conference. He's late to his own press conference. Well, in the audience is Andrew Breitbart. So the media, not like wasting their time. They don't like Anthony Weiner wasting their time. So they said, well, why don't you get up at the podium that Anthony Weiner paid for? And Andrew Breitbart did so. It's a fascinating story in his book, Righteous Indignation. I remember watching it live at the time because it was a scandal for our congressman. So just something very interesting at that time in history. So to call it a slow news cycle, I don't necessarily agree. So anyway, enough on that. And I just had to give you one. Man, there's so much. I forgot about all the graphic details, and it's all in there at the New York Post. But I know it's been a while, so I wanted to give you that update. That just women, according to Anthony Weiner himself, Women are just crazy about him. Okay, let's talk. Oh, I'm running late. When we come back, that was way too much time spent on Anthony Weiner. When we come back, we've got some university, college updates. We're also going to talk more about the tariffs, the ping pong match between the judges. We'll talk about that. We also have a couple other things about Musk. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers, including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events. Infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Rapid symptom relief and lasting steroid-free remission are possible with Rinvoq. Ask your gastroenterologist if switching to Rinvoq is right for you. You could pay as little as $0 per month.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Big Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. They should put Anthony Weiner and Andrew Cuomo both in jail. They don't belong in politics. I don't know if Anthony Weiner is going to win, but Cuomo looks as if he's on track to be mayor of New York City. But I would agree with you and Elise Stefanik saying at that hearing that Andrew Cuomo should never hold elected office again because of his decision, not only his decision to put COVID-positive patients in nursing homes that led to untold amount of deaths and families suffering as they didn't get to visit their loved ones as they passed away, but also his cover-up of that scandal, and also his being unapologetic about it, really doubling down, tripling down in its statement. So I would agree with you. Comment from a different viewer. My feelings regarding the hatred of Elon is that he has diminished the ability of Democrats to make money off of government programs. In other words, they are mad because they're losing illegal monetary gains off us taxpayers. That is a very good point. I think that is why I think there's a lot of people that stand to gain a lot from waste, fraud, and corruption, obviously. Okay, on the university front, this is a real weird way of twisting this. But according to data from Study Portals, a platform that helps students find degree programs, The Economist reported that clicks on U.S. courses are currently at their lowest levels since the pandemic. Compared to last year, traffic to undergrad and master's pages was down by more than 20% in quarter one. Now, this article suggests it's an early sign that President Trump's crackdown on international students is already quashing interest in American colleges. No, I think it's the perfect storm. When you see, first of all, your degree diminished because you get out of Columbia and you can't be hired because someone doesn't want to do the research to see if you were part of these anti-Semitic protests, or people just opened their eyes and saw the radicalization on college campuses. So it's not just international students that are causing this decline. It's people waking up and realizing, is it worth being $100,000 in debt to get that 19th century poetry, socialist poetry? Wasn't that what that one protester was taking? 19th century socialist poetry major, and not having any options in the real world, especially when they see that you could have been potentially involved in these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protests. Could it be that? Or is it another, according to this article, another way to blame Trump for something else? It's so, not seeing the forest for the trees. Many of America's elite universities, including Hopkins, Columbia, and MIT, have large international student populations. Nearly 30% of the student body at Harvard, which has borne the brunt of the White House's attempt to reshape higher education, was from outside the U.S. as of 2023. No, this is just an overall picture of people don't want to spend, or parents don't want to spend good money having their children radicalized. Now, did you see, I can't quite understand Harvard President's Alan Garber, because one moment he'll say, yeah, there is a lack of diversity of viewpoint, but he'll say, or a perceived lack of that. If someone has dealt with that, he is very political in how he responds to things. But he decided to jab, seems like a bad time for this, but jab at President Trump during his remarks at the graduation ceremony at Harvard. Members of the class of 2025 from down the street, across the country, and around the world, just as it should be, Garber said. He then received a 1-minute standing ovation, in large part due to his call for universities to stand firm against the Trump administration, which has waged war against Ivy League schools. Again, a lot of loaded language there, but what he's saying is we are going to stand strong. It's better for our brand at Harvard. We are going to stand strong with the anti-Semitic protesters. We support the pro-Hamas protesters, darn it. And that got him a 1-minute standing ovation. Now, he didn't put it in those words, but how else could you describe it? What else is he standing on? Garber, who became president of Harvard last August, told graduates they should be willing to expand our thinking and change our minds in the process, and said his hope is that they stay comfortable being uncomfortable. Stay comfortable being uncomfortable. Are you talking to the Jewish population that you have not cared one bit about during these protests, that they should feel comfortable in their uncomfortableness? Is that who you're referencing, or is it the anti-Semitic protesters who may get criticism from the Trump administration and that may make them uncomfortable? Because as far as I can tell, there's not been one care given by these elite universities for their Jewish population on campus, as they have been threatened, as they have been intimidated. So I guess maybe that is who Garber is speaking to. Feel comfortable and you're uncomfortable. Get used to it, basically. Unbelievable. So that Garber, to me, he's kind of a political type figure in the way that he speaks with no real answers. But then he weighs in every once in a while, showing again his commitment to the pro-Hamas protesters and his lack of caring for the Jewish population on his campus. But as David Harsanyi writes, but I'm not going to tell you what he writes because we're going to tell you when we come back. I'm running just a little bit late. There's not a lot of updates on colleges, but I do want to kind of get us all on par here this morning and catch up on everything we've been talking about all week, and then talk more about Trump's tariffs. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, where the 11-judge panel decided that the 3-judge panel has to hold its horses, and there's going to be a stay until the Trump administration has time to appeal. We're going to talk about that, what some of the talking heads have to say. That's a little bit later on, but stay with us. we've got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
When you think swimming pools, think Hesselson's. Hesselson's offers expert advice, professional service, and a complete line of chemicals and accessories. Replacement liners, motors and pumps, automatic vacuums, skimmers, ladders, steps, and more. Hesselson's has it all. Do you have a chemical question? Come in for Hesselson's free computerized water analysis and the widest selection of chlorine and specialty chemicals. With Hesselson's help, you can clean up any pool problem and swim in sparkling clean water. Let Hesselson's show you how easy it can be to take care of your swimming pool. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Since 1983, Nissan has been assembling award-winning vehicles for you, right here in America. And we're committed to keeping our lineup affordable and free from new tariffs. That's why we've lowered MSRP on our best-selling Rogue and Pathfinder. So you can get the car you want, at the price you want, knowing Nissan is here for you at the Nissan Summer Sales Event.
Now get a low $249 per month lease on Rogue, or get a low $339 per month lease on Pathfinder.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Great comments coming in. Watched old Nancy Pelosi and her Memorial Day speech. Inspiring as usual, but she had George Patton buried in Belgium. I wonder who was buried in Luxembourg Cemetery named George Patton. Yes. I didn't know she gave a speech. I missed it. Comment from a different viewer. Elon may be gone, but the idea of fiscal responsibility is not. The elephant in the room is Republicans wanting to blow the money Doge tried to save. And that was Elon's point. And I'm going to paraphrase, but he did say you can have a big bill and you can have a beautiful bill. You can't have both. Also saying that he thought it went against kind of the mission of Doge. So you raise a fair point. Comment, different comment. Anthony Weiner figures if a killer can make a political comeback, why can't he? Yeah, Andrew Cuomo and putting COVID-positive patients in with our most vulnerable in nursing homes led to thousands of deaths and also families that didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones, didn't get to visit at that time. And to add insult to injury, Andrew Cuomo has never been apologetic. He's never apologized to those families. He's lied about the numbers. He's tried to cover up information regarding that, all while at the time he was writing a book about how great he did. And remember, he started his, not started, but had a huge ad buy during this mayoral run, touting his quote-unquote leadership during COVID. That is, kind of in a nutshell, the arrogance of one Andrew Cuomo. Comment from a different viewer. Reshape higher education. If this is not an example of twisting, an outright fabrication of reality to fit one's own agenda, then I don't know what is. Yes, I agree with you. To use that term, twisting, or excuse me, reshaping higher education. Yeah, that's not what he's doing. He's trying to stop anti-Semitism. And people are going to say, well, free speech rights. There are consequences. And those consequences, and this is a piece I'm about to bring up, are Harvard, you don't get taxpayer money. If you can't protect your Jewish population, and by the way, it's not free speech when you start to get into the destruction that we've seen like at that library recently, when you start talking about the intimidation and threats of violence against Jewish students, there is a line. And I know people sometimes throw around the blanket idea that free speech protects everything. It does. These students can go out and wave their pro-Hamas flags. But there are consequences to free speech. Just as if you went to your place of employment and started saying that, I don't know, your boss is a jerk. Yeah, you have the free speech right to say that. How long do you think you'll continue at that job? Okay. David Hersani says, do taxpayers have a constitutional duty to bankrupt Harvard University? Bankroll. Did I say bankrupt? Do taxpayers have a constitutional duty to bankroll Harvard University? Probably. They'll probably find some judge. It seems like we have a constitutional responsibility to pay for Harvard, to pay for NPR. That's what their lawsuit is. So we as taxpayers should have to fund their propaganda, which, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a bill to ban taxpayer funds from that. We'll talk about that later on in the program. But yeah, I guess we have a responsibility to pay for the propaganda that NPR and PBS is most known for producing. On MSNBC, David French argued that President Trump's defunding of Harvard is little more than political retaliation. In the United States, we don't sentence people before hearing the verdict. The New York Times columnist said, ignoring due process is directly contrary to our constitutional principles. David might not be aware that in addition to the Joint Government Task Force's claim that Harvard leadership failed to meaningfully confront pervasive insults, physical assault, and intimidation of Jewish students, there's also a blistering internal university task force report that maintains that Harvard allowed anti-Semitism to permeate coursework, social life, the hiring of some faculty members, and the worldview of certain academic programs. That was in their own study. And keep in mind, I know I say this a lot in the program, it's not just the students. It is the faculty. It's the supposed grown-ups in the room. Harvard concedes, quote, members of the Jewish and Israeli communities at Harvard reported treatment that was vicious and reprehensible. That was from their own study. The verdict is in, but I suppose I'd pose the situation in another way, says David Hersani. If a government investigation and internal review both found that white supremacists on Harvard campus were terrorizing black students and engaging in racist marches, and that their violent beliefs had found favor in the school's curriculum and in social life, would anyone on MSNBC argue that the government had an obligation to keep funding this school until a civil lawsuit worked its way through the courts? Of course not. They would not support that. We know that. That's the hypocrisy of those in the media and on the left. Now, David Hersani makes clear, I'm not accusing David French of being blind to the struggles of Jewish students. I am accusing him of being blinded by the presence of Donald Trump. Are the president's motivations political? Probably. So what? Said Hersani. So are those of Harvard's defenders. Harvard, a private institution, can do as it likes. There's nothing illegal about coddling extremists. If the Trump administration failed to follow a bureaucratic process before freezing funds to the university, fine, get it done. But what constitutional principle dictates that the federal government must provide this specific institution with $3 billion in federal contracts and grants? But I would add on to what Mr. Hersani is saying, that why do we also have to fund NPR and PBS? Why are these things constitutional rights? Is that being thrown around too much? Giving them the money was a policy decision made by the executive branch. Withdrawing the funding is the same. French reasons that the administration should, at very least, target the entity and individuals responsible for the bad behavior. Defund the Middle Eastern Studies Department rather than, say, the Pediatric Cancer Research Department. I'm sympathetic to this idea, but funding, as we all understand, is fungible. Targeting one department will do nothing to change the culture. Moreover, leadership is responsible for that culture. If allowed, nay, nurtured, a Middle East Studies Department staffed by a slew of crazy people. It's not the only department. Think about it this way. There's a far higher likelihood of finding an apologist of Islamic terrorism than a Christian conservative on Harvard faculty. Think about that. That's a great point. Less than 3% of the Harvard faculty identify as conservative. There are real-world consequences for Harvard's radicalism as their grads are staffing newsrooms, influential law firms, and government agencies without ever hearing a dissenting view, without ever hearing why Trump really won the election in a landslide, why people believe in his policies. If the school values its pediatric cancer research efforts so highly, why does it sacrifice grants and prestige by allowing bigoted bullies to run around campus targeting Jews? That's a choice. That has been their choice. They say how important the research is, then why are you continuing to stand with the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic protesters in detriment to that research? Harsani says, as far as I can tell, not one student was expelled, much less suspended, for anti-Semitism in the 2 years since October 7, 2023. If your answer is the school feels a profound obligation to defend free expression, I suggest you speak to some pro-Israeli or pro-capitalist or pro-American or social conservative students on campus and see how comfortable they feel about airing their opinions. And that's a great point. See if they stand for free speech. If, let's say, for instance, a Donald Trump, a Don Jr. gets invited to speak at their campus. Let's see if they still have that unwavering position on free speech. Or think about those students, as we talked about so much yesterday on the program, that do fear for, well, their social lives, but also fear for their safety if they are conservative and want to talk conservative values on campus. Look at what happened to Turning Points USA in the past, even right down the road in Binghamton. The violence. Harvard finished last for the second year running in the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression's college free speech rankings in 2024, along with Columbia and New York. The only speech Harvard values is the extremist variety. We should feel no patriotic imperative to fund speech we dislike, which is very different from the imperative of protecting speech we dislike. Yes, we should not be funding that, just like we should not be funding the propaganda on NPR and PBS. That is not their right to get your money and my money. But again, I want to reiterate what he said. We should feel no patriotic imperative to fund speech we dislike, which is very different from the imperative of protecting speech we dislike. The distinction seems to be lost by many. Harvard, along with many left-wingers, argue that Trump's funding freeze violates its First Amendment rights. Who knows what the courts will say the way things are going. If they force the funding to continue, something is seriously wrong. Anyway, perhaps Harvard should dip into its $53 billion hedge fund it runs to backfill some of the funding. Or maybe it can hit up the Islamic sheiks of Qatar for some cash. Maybe they can chip in. But taxpayers shouldn't be compelled to subsidize an institution that almost exclusively teaches students to hate their values, to hate the American way, and to hate, unfortunately, as we've seen time and time again, the Jewish students, the Jewish community on college campuses, but also in general throughout the world. One other thing tying this in with New York, then we've got a lot to get to on the media, and I see a lot of comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Hard
When you're
water
online,
makes
don't
it
forget
hard
visit
to
our
keep your
Facebook
home
page
looking
at
like
Big
the work
Fox
of art
News.
you've always
Catch up on
envisioned
news
it
for
would
the
be.
Twin Tiers.
Culligan
Vote
softeners
on the
reduce
daily
hard water
question.
buildup
And
and
hear
your
about
cleaning
local
time,
events.
transforming
All on
every drop,
Facebook.com/Big
every splash,
Fox
every
News.
rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water.
Ubrelvy is another option. It works fast, and most have migraine pain relief within 2 hours. You can treat it anytime, anywhere. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur hours to days after. Side effects include nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Learn how AbbVie could help you save on Ubrelvy.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. A day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comments from viewers as we already have to take another break. I know I'm getting chatty this morning and rambling on. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I would say TGIF, but weekends throw us retired folks off our usual schedule. Well, in spirit, I understand. You say that Doge has exposed the Democrats' grift, but let's not pretend that there are no Republicans doing the same. I couldn't agree more, and this is Fred. Thank you, Fred. I couldn't agree more. I think it's Democrats are fighting the hardest against it, but let's face it, there's been some Republicans that aren't going to be a big fan or aren't a big fan of Doge. In my opinion, anyone who has been in office for more than 2 years is suspect. That's fair, Fred. Doge should be made a permanent federal department, but you can't expect the reptiles to drain their own swamp. Very good point. Mark writes in, to the people complaining about tariffs, would you rather buy an item made by your neighbor or someone in our country, or an item made overseas with child labor? I'll pay more for made in the USA and be proud of it. Thank you, Mark. One last thing on the college front. New York State sued the National Science Foundation yesterday, to block federal cuts to science research and the push to shutter education diversity programs in science, technology, engineering, and math. Leading a coalition of 16 states, you guessed it, Attorney General Letitia James filed the lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York and said slashing funds would damage the state's schools, economy, and position as a science leader. I don't want to read her quote, but it should come as no surprise. Lawsuits abound. All right. When we come back, a couple updates on, well, we might wait on the media. I do have a couple things on the media, but I want to get to a few New York State issues. We are going to talk about, probably at the top of the next hour, tariffs and the ping pong back and forth with the judiciary. The 11-judge panel finding yesterday that the 3-judge panel, they stayed their order and said that the Trump administration has time to appeal. So it's kind of a temporary stoppage. So we'll talk about that in the next hour. We do have a little bit more time left in this hour, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
When you think swimming pools, think Hesselson's. Hesselson's offers expert advice, professional service, and a complete line of chemicals and accessories. Replacement liners, motors and pumps, automatic vacuums, skimmers, ladders, steps, and more. Hesselson's has it all. Do you have a chemical question? Come in for Hesselson's free computerized water analysis and the widest selection of chlorine and specialty chemicals. With Hesselson's help, you can clean up any pool problem and swim in sparkling clean water. Let Hesselson's show you how easy it can be to take care of your swimming pool. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio, wrapping up hour number one. We're going to start the next hour with New York State issues, because I don't want to run late on what Joe Semplinsky had to say, but I will kind of wrap up this hour with some media updates. Jake Tapper's CNN show hits its lowest ratings since 2015, despite his new Biden book buzz. I don't think this should come as a surprise. He's making a book. He's got a book tour where he's exposed himself in the media to covering up Biden's mental decline. So I think he thought this as a way to protect himself, to save himself and those in the media. And I think it's backfired. I don't think he was the right messenger for it. He has kind of embarrassed himself, in my opinion, on a PR front. And we know what I understand is that they've been hitting nonstop about the book, promoting the book. But the spotlight on Tapper has failed to give him a boost in viewership. The Lead with Jake Tapper averaged 525,000 total viewers from April 28th through May 25th, shedding 25% of CNN's audience in its time slot from the same period last year in the process. By comparison, Fox News, offering The Five and Special Report with Bret Baier, averaged 3.3 million viewers from that same time period. So he receiving only 525,000 viewers, where Fox 3.3 million. But again, when you're on a tour giving interviews, highlighting the fact that you and your ilk in the media, not Fox, of course, covered up what he even now admits, that we've been saying a long time on this program, is a scandal bigger than Watergate. And they covered it up. They didn't do their due diligence because they wanted to protect Biden. They wanted him to run or win re-election. We know that. That's no secret. So now they created one of the biggest scandals in presidential history. Also on the media front, Trump has rejected, I can't remember if we had a chance to mention the number yesterday, but it rejected Paramount's $15 million offer to settle that CBS News lawsuit. President Trump rejected it and demands an apology. President Trump and Paramount Global are still in an impasse as they attempt to resolve his $20 billion lawsuit against the company through mediation. Fox News confirmed that Trump rejected a $15 million offer to settle his lawsuit. According to a source familiar with the matter, the president's legal team is also demanding at least $25 million and an apology from CBS News. I think it's going to be hard to get the apology because you see the people like Scott Pelley at that commencement speech and at that 60 Minutes. They don't think they did anything wrong because their ultimate goal is to get a Democrat elected. So if they do apologize, if the head of Paramount does apologize, I think you will see a mass exodus perhaps at CBS. Because look, they doubled, tripled down. They had that 60 Minutes just the other day, a couple weeks ago, I should say, that was calling Trump a mob boss and didn't have any other opinion than any other interview with someone that had a different opinion than Trump is bad. You know, that Trump is evil. That was all the interviews they had. No one with an opposing view. I know I worded that strange. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes, kind of reaching an impasse. I do have maybe a couple other media updates we'll get to later on in the program. But when we come back, some New York State issues. We're going to talk more about tariffs. And look, we've got a Climate Fact Friday from Bob. When we come back, stay with us. We'll be right back with hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking.
I would never forget the picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Scamming seniors is a huge problem today. Worldwide, seniors lost $4.8 billion to scammers in 2024. The Steuben County Office for the Aging is here to help. Come to our seminar, Recognizing and Avoiding Financial Scams, Wednesday, June 4th at the Main Place in Hornell, New York, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Learn how to identify scams, how to protect yourself, and fraud watch tips. Also, the Steuben County Office for the Aging will provide tips on emergency preparedness, June 4th at 12 p.m. To learn more, go to steubencountiny.gov/235.
It's the 2025 Cardboard Boat Regatta. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025.
Migraine strikes. Do you question the trade-offs of treating? Ubrelvy is another option. It works fast, and most have migraine pain relief within 2 hours. You can treat it anytime, anywhere. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur hours to days after. Side effects include nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Learn how AbbVie could help you save on Ubrelvy.
Attention all, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a couple of New York State updates. Then we're going to get right into, in more depth, the fact that Trump's tariffs are back, as Mark put it, rocking and rolling after an appeals court slammed the brakes on the trade court's ban. Are you following all this? We'll talk about that. But first, as promised at the end of the last hour, good morning. Climate Fact Friday from Bob. Well, thanks as always, Bob, for writing in. Today's subject is ocean currents. Ocean currents are one of the main drivers of weather and climate change. The ocean conveyor belts are movers of all kinds of weather. The warmer waters from around the equator move toward the North and South Pole Arctic regions. The alarmists have been saying if they slow down due to human-induced climate change, that it will be a climate disaster. Now that NASA is saying that the currents have sped up for 20 years, and that could be because of human activity also. So, you science experts, which is it? What are humans to blame for? Speeding it up or slowing it down? Typical bureaucratic doublespeak. Anything to keep the money flowing. Yeah, so what a great way of play both ends towards the middle, right? If you say, oh, speeding up is by humans, slowing down is by humans, you got all your bases covered. And Bob finishes by saying, thanks everyone, enjoy the weekend. Well, thank you, Bob. We always appreciate Climate Fact Friday with Bob. All right, speaking of climate change, that's a good segue, Bob. I appreciate it. We had the article yesterday where two Albany politicians, one from Brooklyn, one from Manhattan, they wanted to ban any farm in New York from having more than 700 cows. And we talked about it pretty lengthy. We had some great comments, some suggestions, but we learned too that 700 cows is still considered in many instances a small business. Now, to you and I, it seems like a lot, but that is not some astronomical number. So the argument that the politicians made is it's better for the environment, and also that it's somehow better for small businesses. So they want to ban this certain bureaucratic permit that you have to buy if you want more than 700 cows. Well, friend of Frankly Speaking, former congressman and assemblyman, current assemblyman, Joe Sempolinski, he highlighted this bill. The bill, again, presented by Assembly Member Linda B. Rosenthal from Manhattan. I don't think I have to tell you what party these two are from. I think it goes without saying. And Senator Jabri Bridgeport from Brooklyn introduced a bill. If you're interested in learning about it, I know this is extremely wonky, but it's A06928 and S06530 that would ban dairy farms from expanding beyond 700 cows. A move, they said, would protect family dairy farms. But as Sempolinski pointed out, it does the opposite. This is his quote. This bill was drafted by two legislators from New York City who know nothing about dairy farming, but are presuming to tell New York's dairy farmers how to run their farms. The majority of New York's farms, more than 94%, are family owned. This bill has the potential to devastate family farms across New York. I would also add, I'm going to tell you more of what Joe had to say, Assemblyman Sempolinski had to say, but You think about these farmers that have struggled to pay their taxes, their land taxes, to just eke out a living. Many had a very good opportunity when it came to fracking to actually make some money. And of course, that was banned in the state. And now they're saying, okay, we want to ban also you having a sufficient amount of cows to make money and help your families survive. Sempolinski said, with all due respect to my colleagues from New York City, this bill is dangerously misguided. It's a breathtaking example of legislative overreach. It takes 60,000 cows per day to supply milk to the Great Lakes cheese plant in Franklinville. Think about that, 60,000 cows per day. Family-run dairy farms in Allegheny, Cattaraugus, and Steuben counties are supplying that milk. They clearly have never visited any of our large family-owned farms upstate. Now, according to the New York Farm Bureau, dairy is the single largest sector of New York's agricultural economy, contributing $3.9 billion every year. New York is the 5th largest dairy producing state in the nation. We even make a big deal about butter and all that at the New York State Fair. Why would this goes to show you what a taste of power can do, kind of the Barney Fife mindset, where these two politicians that know nothing about farming, lived in the city probably their whole life, want to use their government power to control dairy farms, something, again, they know nothing about. And what disaster that would be for our economy in New York State, what a disaster it would be for family-run farms and farms in general that are already struggling to survive. What these two people, Rosenthal and Bridgeport, did shows that they have no respect for our farmers in New York State. Sempolinski continued, farmers are the cornerstone of our economy. Family farms, many of them run by the same family for generations, deserve a chance to grow and thrive. I oppose any legislation that threatens the economic vitality of this critical sector of our economy. So thank you to the Assemblyman for weighing in on this issue, especially coming from an area like Joe is, a very big farm community, unlike the two quote-unquote representatives from the city telling farmers in New York what to do. It's government overreach, as Joe said. It's all about government control. Just a couple other quick, and feel free to weigh in on this, a couple quick New York issues before we get to tariffs. Scott, this is commentary from Scott Rickman. Scott Rickman is the regional director of the Anti-Defamation League, New York, New Jersey. And he said just over 1 year ago, protesters occupied Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. I know this kind of ties in with what we talked about earlier. As they broke into the building, vandalized and harassed staff members, the protesters covered their faces with masks to obscure their identities. This spring, just as the state legislature took action to combat masked harassment and intimidation, masked individuals at Columbia occupied a library, causing extensive damage, assaulting security officers, and making it impossible for students to study for their final exams. These incidents are two examples of a trend happening here in New York and across the country. Following the widespread use of masks and the understandable repeal of New York's masking law in 2020 due to COVID, many individuals relied on face coverings to avoid illness while attending events or are around crowds. Unfortunately, too many bad actors also began to use masks to engage in threatening and harassing behavior with impunity. We've all seen what can happen when anonymity is used to commit crimes or endanger others. Many states passed laws restricting masks in response to the Ku Klux Klan decades ago. Their members hid behind robes and hoods as they terrorized marginalized communities. Today, extremists across the political spectrum wear face coverings to intentionally intimidate others and avoid identification. Our goal is not to ban masks, he writes. We believe strongly that individuals should be able to wear masks for health and safety concerns or religious reasons. But wearing a mask to intentionally intimidate, harass, and threaten others, and to cause those targeted to reasonably fear for their physical safety does not protect speech. Rather, such conduct hinders free speech by intimidating others into silence. Governor Hochul understood the seriousness of the issue and felt it was important to address masked intimidation as a priority in her budget. Ultimately, though, New York's legislators agreed to create a new crime of, quote, evading arrest by concealment of identity. While this is a significant victory worth celebrating, there is still more to be done to make sure all New Yorkers are safe while simultaneously safeguarding free speech. I mentioned this because they praise Hochul, and this is something that Hochul will highlight, will tout. But again, this is another example of her caving in the battle. This does not do what its intended purpose was, which is to ban face masks while being used to intimidate others. All this does is make it a secondary crime. College campuses and municipalities across New York can and should enact and enforce their own stronger policies against masked intimidation. And if we continue to see masked individuals intimidating, harassing, and threatening vulnerable communities, the state legislature could take additional actions next session. In the meantime, we at the Anti-Defamation League will continue to stand up against masked intimidation by calling for lawmakers at state and local levels across the country to implement stronger policies to address masked intimidation that do not violate the First Amendment. As we celebrate this important and much-needed first step towards combating masked intimidation, it is important that we strive to make these measures as effective as possible to ensure every New Yorker's safety. Problem is, I understand they're happy with anything, but it's not a first step. It'll be the last step. She got what she believes her victory, and at the end of the day, it does really nothing in the long run. All right. Oh, one last thing, just as a side note, just your thoughts on it. New York lawmakers are eyeing a crackdown on ticket scalpers. Purchasing tickets to live shows and concerts could see a suite of new protections prompted by persistent complaints about price gouging on live ticketing platforms and resale sites. Among other proposed changes, lawmakers want to cap fees imposed by live ticket platforms to more than 25% of a ticket's original value. They also want to significantly limit the resale of live music tickets, forcing resold tickets to cost at or below their original price if an artist chooses to opt into that provision. Just something to keep in mind. All right, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Attention all, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
Almost looks like a painting, doesn't it? Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. That view brought to us by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. First up, limiting the number of cows is ridiculous. And if you're just joining us, there is a proposed bill in Albany by two lawmakers, one from Brooklyn, one from Manhattan, that will not allow you to have more than 700 cows on your farm. Which one was on? Here we go. Limiting the number of cows is ridiculous. Would you start any business on a limit of what you could produce? This tells me that more businesses are going to leave New York. Way to go, New York Democrats. Nah. Yes, it does. It's another example of bad business practice coming from Albany, right? It's another example of saying we don't care about businesses, we don't care about our farmers. But keep in mind, those two politicians, they don't have to worry about their constituents voting against them because of this. Do you think their constituents in Brooklyn and in Manhattan care one bit about the farmers? They just know that milk's going to be at that bodega every day. They don't understand the process. They don't understand. And it's not as if these politicians are visiting our beautiful area and talking with dairy farmers. So they know that to them, it's not going to lose any votes for them. And it may actually gain because they look more radical, more extreme on the left because they're doing it in the name of climate change. Well, and I'll tie it in with what a different viewer had to say. That farming bill is a perfect example of how much the socialistic Democrats want to control exactly what you can and cannot do. Yes, everything. I mean, where they came up with that arbitrary number of 700 as well is just, it's nonsensical, but again, it doesn't hurt them. And the radical left, I think this only helps them. But I'm glad people like Joe Sempolinski, and I'm sure Phil Palmisano are speaking out against this. Chris Friend. All right, comment from a different viewer. The banning of masks, like the banning of guns, will do nothing, and that just like criminals will get guns to commit a crime, so will a mask be used to commit a crime, irregardless of the law. Thank you for that. Yes, I know. But it's a way to fine and punish them more because they're using it in a way, just like in the reason the original bans were in place was because of the Ku Klux Klan, to hide their identity so they can get away with more violent and extreme protests. But I appreciate your point. Comment from a different viewer. I feel Jerome Powell is not lowering interest. Yeah, is not lowering interest to hurt Trump. He lowered it under Biden when inflation was much higher. Yeah, I think there is a political aspect to it as well. I'd agree. So we mentioned yesterday a full 11-judge panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit stayed the order by the Court of International Trade. So Trump's tariffs are back on. Now, it's something interesting that I learned yesterday. We were questioning, because the media loves when a judge goes against Trump and the judge was backed or was put in by Reagan or Trump or whatever the case may be. They love that narrative. Well, the judges on the U.S. Court of International Trade who ruled that Trump's Liberation Day tariffs are illegal have a history of Democrat Party activism. Each of the members of the three-judge panel, which was stayed, by the way, fit the profile of other activist judges who continued their political activism after joining the court. Judges Gary Katzman, Timothy Rafe, and Jane Rastani have histories of supporting Democrat candidates that span as far back as 45 years ago and have thwarted Trump's authority in both of his administrations. Now, Trump was not happy with these judges, saying last night on Truth Social, where do these initial three judges come from? How is it possible for them to have potentially done such damage to the United States of America? It is purely a hatred of Trump. What other reason could it be? Now, Katzman was nominated by Barack Obama in 2015, attended Columbia, Oxford, and Yale Law School, and later clerk for Stephen Breyer. He was a researcher at the Center of Criminal Justice at Harvard Law School, as well as a lecturer at Harvard Law School. Although Katzman is registered unaffiliated in Massachusetts, he voted in 2018, 2016, and 2014 Democrat primaries. So there is just a quick view. Now, Rafe, Rafe and the other two judges were both appointed by Republicans. It says here, due to a law requiring no more than 5 of the court's 9 judges coming from the same political party. So it's more because of a numbers scenario. Rafe, nominated by Trump in 2019, donated $250 to the presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton in 2016, $265 to Obama's inaugural committee, et cetera, et cetera. The list can go on and on. I don't need to go through all of these, but they have a history of Democrat activism. Trump blasted the backroom hustlers in this legal battle over the tariffs. Where do these initial 3 judges come from? As I had mentioned, this was a 510-word long truth social post. In this case, it is only because my successful use of tariffs that many trillions of dollars have already begun pouring into the USA from other countries. Many that, without these tariffs, we would not be able to get. It is the difference between having a rich, prosperous, and successful United States of America and quite the opposite. The ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade is so wrong and so political. Hopefully, the Supreme Court will reverse this horrible, country-threatening decision quickly and decisively. Backroom hustlers must not be allowed to destroy our nation. The horrific decision stated that I would have to get the approval of Congress for these tariffs. In other words, hundreds of politicians would sit around D.C. for weeks and even months trying to come to a conclusion as to what to charge other countries that are treating us unfairly. If allowed to stand, this would completely destroy presidential power. The presidency would never be the same. He also lashed out at the Federalist Society, an influential conservative legal group that helped shape the federal bench during Trump's first term. I was new to Washington, and it was suggested that I use the Federalist Society as a recommendation or a recommending source on judges. I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who in his own way probably hates America and obviously has his own separate ambitions. He openly brags how he can control judges and even justices at the United States Supreme Court. I hope that is not so, and I don't believe it is. In any event, Leo left the Federalist Society to do his own quote-unquote thing. I'm very grateful. Oh, Leo said he was grateful to Trump despite the hurtful remarks, whatever that's worth. Trump blamed the Federalist Society for giving him bad advice on numerous judicial nominees. This is something that cannot be forgotten. All right. But he denounced the political tariff decision, calling on the Supreme Court to act quickly. Now, I had mentioned this, and now we're going to get into some opinions on this. Ty Cobb, former White House special counsel, Ty Cobb, he's got a very unique look. The beard and the mustache. He was on CNN's Out Front. He's no fan of Trump. And I just don't, I cannot believe he had the audacity to say this. So host Aaron Burnett said, so when Carolyn Leavitt, the press secretary today, says the court should have no role here. And then she said America cannot function if Trump or any other president has their diplomatic or trade negotiations railroaded by activist judges. So this is they're going back to any judge that would rule against them is activist. You've already pointed out not just the credibility of these judges, but one of them was appointed by Trump himself. What do you say, though, to that, to her? Ty Cobb saying, I don't think creepy Carolyn, when she speaks, I don't think anybody in America really takes her seriously on a matter of substance. She's not, learned by any imagination. She's not learned by any imagination. And I think her comments are clearly so defensive and so ill-informed that people may largely turn her out. She's wrong. The statute in question was never in history been used in connection with tariffs. So I think the likelihood is that the statute will be upheld and enforced in a way that precludes the president from trying to pretend that he has these all-encompassing powers. So would you agree with Mr. Cobb that Carolyn Leavitt is creepy? Why go that direction? He invalidates any point that he may or may not have had. I don't think creepy Carolyn, when she speaks, I don't think anybody in America really takes her seriously on a matter of substance. Let me ask you this. Who do you take more seriously? Ty Cobb, who has made a career out of just bashing Trump, being anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, embarrassing himself with these types of predictions, embarrassing himself on outlets like MSNBC and CNN. Do you take him more seriously and value his opinion more than Carolyn Leavitt? And also, I would ask you to take a look at the two and their disposition and just their look in general and ask which one is creepy. I would ask you that. But we better take a short break. A little bit more on Trump's tariffs, some opinion pieces on the tariffs, but I want to read your comments. So keep them coming in, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
I have diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Scamming is a huge problem today. Worldwide, seniors lost $4.8 billion to scammers in 2024. The Steuben County Office for the Aging is here to help. Come to our seminar, Recognizing and Avoiding Financial Scams, Wednesday, June 4th at the Main Place in Hornell, New York, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Learn how to identify scams, how to protect yourself, and fraud watch tips. Also, the Steuben County Office for the Aging will provide tips on emergency preparedness, June 4th at 12 p.m. To learn more, go to steubencountiny.gov/235.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Regarding Trump versus CBS. To borrow from Kennedy's comment about the CIA, I would like to see CBS splintered into 1,000 pieces and scattered into the winds. They have been a traitorous influence in this country my entire life, starting with morally safers, I know I pronounced that wrong, fabricating American atrocities in the early days of Vietnam, and probably before that. Yeah, I'm sure before that. One thing that's interesting, I know that Rush Limbaugh used to talk about this a lot, but before you realized there was a bias, people didn't think the news would lie to you. It's not until there was alternatives that you started to see the bias. Not you personally. I mean, just us, the general population, recognize that. That's why Fox News is so popular. It's why their ratings are the highest. Okay. Comment from a different viewer. I like Carolyn Levitt, and I don't think she is in any way, shape, or form creepy. But I do think the child that said she is a very creepy man. I would agree. Just calling her creepy does kind of make him creepy. Why? Saying she has no credibility. I mean, there is nothing about her that says creepy. But if you look at a picture of Ty Cobb, I think you could jump to a reasonable conclusion that people would maybe put that label upon him. And now I like that. I love every single comment we get is brilliant. But this has got a very important point to it. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I now know what I want to be when I grow up. A cow counter. Somebody's going to have to do it. There does seem to be a lot of oversight with the cannabis shops, but I'm sure that the cow counting committee will do a far better job. I would agree. There'll probably be more cow counters than there are actual officers in the Office of Cannabis Management, actually. I say it's brilliant because you are right. There will be somebody, and it'll have a fancy title. But if this bill were to go through, there would be a position, a bureaucratic position of cow counter. Whatever Well, let's have fun. If you want to have fun, what would the cow counter just sounds great because of how it rolls off the tongue. But what do you think the official government name for a cow counter would be? Should be upwards of 8 words if you see these business cards. We were talking about tariffs. Trump's tariffs were one of his most unpopular policies before the trade court blocked them, according to a poll. So some have said, specifically Charles Gasparino, says Donald Trump should take the win, but he probably won't. The markets rallied when investors thought the court ruling against Trump's tariffs would finally end the trade drama, roiling the economy. But the president has vowed to fight on and was able to get the tariffs turned back on while his appeal is being heard. This is only a temporary setback, he says, a bump in the road to Damascus that will convince tariff apostates like your friendly columnist, this is Charles Gasparino, to accept the savior and embrace the miracle of a new era of 1960-style manufacturing returning to middle America. Full disclosure, I want Donald Trump to succeed, says Charles Gasparino. It's just that he could have achieved much of what he's doing now and not thrown the U.S. economy and his presidency into a potential existential crisis. Again, I say this as someone who sees a lot of merit in Trump's vision for the future of the country. The vast majority of his vision will save this country from the anarchy of the left that was unleashed under Joe Biden. Whether or not he was sentiment enough to notice in his waking hours. Trump's continued pressure on higher education to educate rather than indoctrinate with taxpayer money should qualify him for Mount Rushmore. Ditto for closing the border because he will have a welfare state. Because we still have a welfare state, and you cannot have one with open borders. Doge was great and necessary, even if it just saves a fraction of what is promised. DEI must have been invented by our adversaries like the Chinese, given how it warps the American dream, and Trump rightly is hell-bent to end it. And yet trade, namely a trade war, could short-circuit all of the above, yet be totally avoided with a defer policy hand as opposed to all-out war with everyone. Tariff trauma is real and it's growing, and it could be immediate as in later in the summer. Without going into too much more of this because it does ramble on a little bit. But he's saying that Trump should take the win. Allow this obscure but important trade court, the International Court of Trade, have its day in the sun and move on with more pressing matters like deregulation and drilling, which has created more jobs than those shirt factories lost to China. The word I'm hearing from Wall Street is he won't. There are other ways to get around the court ruling and impose tariffs. And Trump has shown no desire to back down, so buckle up. Your thoughts on that? The Post editorial board saying similar, that the White House should take the court setback as a chance for a reset on tariffs. So this seems to be kind of from the more moderate, for lack of a better word, Republicans. This seems to be the mindset. He still has multiple ways to hike tariffs, even if many will take longer. Then again, the rapid, arbitrary seeming back and forth surprises are a big reason why the tariffs have built so much anxiety. So a slower pace is a plus. The moment also gives Congress a chance to stop hiding on trade. It can back up the president's broad approach while tamping down on the air of chaos. More important, all the tariff anger should be a sideshow. They're only one part of Trump's overall agenda, most of which is much more popular. Yeah, but that's why the media runs with it so much. That's why we hear nonstop about tariffs, because they see, polling-wise, that it's probably his least, because I don't believe polls, least favored position. And above all else, as a matter of hard, practical politics, the overriding White House goal has to be a boom that brings strong job and wage growth well before the midterm elections. Anything less than that risks letting Democrats retake the House, bringing back total gridlock, and starting up yet another round of impeachment theater. No White House flunkey's eagerness to keep tariffs in the headlines is worth that. Wow, look at all these comments coming in. We'll have one, well, let me go with this, because this kind of ties in. The Justice Department, because we've been talking about the activist judges, the Justice Department on Thursday formally notified the American Bar Association that it will no longer comply with its ratings process for judicial nominees. The results of what it argues is a biased system, and one that invariably and demonstrably favors nominees put forth by Democrat administrations. The letter, sent by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to American Bar Association President William R. Ray, marks the latest escalation in a protracted legal fight that Republicans have waged against the nation's largest association of legal workers. In the letter, it said for decades, the American Bar Association has received special treatment and enjoyed special access to judicial nominees. In some administrations, the ABA received notice of nominees before a nomination was announced to the public. Some administrations would even decide whether to nominate an individual based on a rating assigned by the ABA. They will no longer receive that special treatment, and first access it has received has been revoked. Accordingly, while the ABA is free to comment on judicial nominations, along with other activist organizations, there's no justification for treating the ABA differently from such other activist organizations, and the Department of Justice will not do so. Nominees will also not respond to questionnaires prepared by the ABA and will not sit for interviews with the ABA. All right, there we go. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about Elon Musk as well. Weigh in your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Well, it's strained.
It is?
It's a repetitive motion injury. Do you do this a lot?
Well, I do give out a lot of checks. Now, what about this pain in my back?
Tender, huh? Do you play any contact sports?
Thank you.
Wow! That explains it. Stick to friendly nods for the next couple of weeks.
When you're on, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers. Vote on the daily question and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Migraine strikes. Do you question the trade-offs of treating? Ubrelvy is another option. It works fast, and most have migraine pain relief within 2 hours. You can treat it anytime, anywhere. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur hours to days after. Side effects include nausea and sleepiness. Migraine pain relief starts with you. Learn how AbbVie could help you save on Ubrelvy.
Attention, it's the 2025 Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta, a day full of fun for all ages. Register at watkinsglen.com/waterfront festival. Hope that boat is sturdy for the big day, June 14th, 2025. Race starts at 2 p.m. On your mark, get set, row.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. Well, with the pardon of the Michigan gang that threatened the governor of Michigan's safety, Trump is now pardoning more thugs than he's deporting. For clarity, my post about college students voicing their opinion on Palestine and Gaza never once mentioned browbeating the Jewish students. One Jew only named Netanyahu. By the way, 54,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict. Hamas killed the 1,400 Jews, not the Palestinians, just for the record. I would like, if you're going to say for the record, Rick, if you could cite your information, I would appreciate it. But continuing, I see some Trump goons are going to aggressively reject Chinese student visas. Isn't that illegal? If you meet the criteria for a visa, shouldn't an individual be awarded a visa? Oops, almost forgot Trump doesn't review or follow laws, policies, guidelines, or documents. A court will overturn it in the end, as always. Speaking of court ruling, Trump can't stop student visas at Harvard indefinitely. Like I said, everything he does gets overturned because it's not legal. The Colorado Rockies have a better record than Trump. And newsflash, Trump finally has his online tirade about the judges that stood up against him. He is so predictable with his garbage, rogue judges, and on and on. They paused last night's decision today. so that he loses his appeal, they will stop again. This is no national emergency. We have a trade deficit since 1975. The only national emergency is named Trump. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weekend, Rick. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. Regarding tariffs, other countries put tariffs on U.S. imports, thereby weakening our economy. So what is the issue with trying to level the playing field in the interest of America? That's a great point. I would say that would be Trump's point, most likely. All right. Oh, we've got, by the way, 2 suggestions for cow counting bureaucratic names. If you are just tuning in, you are probably very confused by that sentence. But first, Ty Cobb should pick corn. He is a Cobb, but he is calling the kettle black. He is creepy. Yes, Ty Cobb, for some reason, thought it was necessary or cute or something. I don't even know what you'd say to call Karen Levitt creepy. I like your phrase there, pot calling the kettle black for sure. Okay, so in regards to the proposed Albany bill that would limit farms to 700 cows or less, someone had the great idea to volunteer, paid volunteer, for the job of cow counter if it goes through, because you know there will be a bureaucratic agency. And I suggested that the bureaucratic agency will probably have more cow counters than the Office of Cannabis Management has officers. It'll be quite a large agency with some sweetheart deals and jobs. Well, if you're going to be in the bureaucracy, you have to have a good bureaucracy name. It can't just be cow counter, even though that sounds very pleasant to the ear. So here are 2 different viewers with 2 different suggestions. First one, bovine bureau agent. I like that one. Sounds very official. Sounds like you may be wearing a badge, which I think you should if you're a cow counter. Have to wear a badge. Then the other one, bovine quantitative compliance officer. That's eerie because you know it probably will be that. I could see that on a business card coming from Albany. Bovine quantitative compliance officer. Okay, so Elon, thank you for both of those and keep them coming in. President Trump teased that today is Musk's last day, but not really. Musk and the president are going to be at a press conference today at 1:30. I wanted to remind you. We'll find out what the future holds for Elon Musk and Doge and the country. And I had mentioned earlier in the 6 o'clock hour that the Democrat Party is already threatening that if they get back in power, they are going to look into the quote-unquote crimes of Elon Musk in reference to Doge. That's the punishment you get. Just like people are keying his Teslas, are bombing Tesla dealerships, just like he has to have armed security around him, extensive armed security around him at all times. That is what happens if you threaten waste, fraud, and corruption in the government. That's the anger that is bestowed upon you. Okay, we talked about the media earlier. Just 2 quick updates. This is so ironic coming off of Jake Tapper's books, or book, I should say, Original Sin, that talked about the media covering up. They were trying to protect the media. Keep in mind, but we learned that the media, that we already knew, that the media covered up Biden's cognitive decline. Well, 2 pieces caught my attention yesterday. The first from the Daily Beast. Now, the Daily Beast is far left, so keep that in mind. But now the reporting begins, probably on the heels of that book by Tapper. Trump shows signs of cognitive decline, says speech expert. Where? I read the whole thing, and it is a very fine example of trying to twist yourself up into a pretzel to try to say he's just like Biden. He's just like a Biden. When we see with our eyes that, of course, and here, that is not the case. But these are the same people that told us that nothing was wrong with Biden, that he was sharp as a tack, and that he should be left alone. So that was number one. I said, well, that's a one-off because it's from the left, Daily Beast. Then the Atlantic, which is also left, but they present themselves as not so left. The conversations Trump's doctor should be having with him. This coming out yesterday as well. An elderly president's physicians should press him to think through hard questions about his health. In contrast to his aging predecessor, President Trump appears robust and energetic. Yet, like Joe Biden, Donald Trump is an elderly man, and he will become the oldest sitting president in U.S. history by the end of his second term. In light of recent revelations about Biden's declining health, as a doctor and an expert in aging, I've been thinking about the responsibilities of Trump's doctors to him and to the American public. If the way we care for elderly people is distinct because their bodies and risks are distinct, perhaps the care of an elderly president should be too. Enough on that. The idea, yes, it's the way to criticize. So now think about that. You don't cover Biden. Any of his mental decline. You actually protect him and defend him, and you become a part of this scandal. And then if you're Jake Tapper, you make money off of that scandal, after covering up that scandal. Or if you're people like in the Atlantic and elsewhere, you say, okay, we'll use that, Biden's mental decline, to attack Trump and say, well, yes, we should have looked into Biden. But because we didn't, we're now going to look into Trump. It's amazing how they work. By the way, speaking of that topic, just quickly before we take a break, Jill Biden, according to New York Post, former First Lady Jill Biden should speak up about what she saw regarding her husband's cognitive decline while in office. That's what Carolyn Levitt said. Ty Cobb calling Carolyn Levitt creepy. Frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew. James Comer has sought interviews with 4 ex-Biden aides as well as former White House physician Kevin O'Connor to discuss efforts to hide the 46th president's mental and physical deterioration. Levitt said Jill Biden was certainly complicit in that cover-up. There are documentation, video evidence of her clearly shielding her husband away from the camera. They were just on The View. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. So there you are. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you think swimming pools, think Hesselsen's. Hesselsen's offers expert advice, professional service, and a complete line of chemicals and accessories. Replacement liners, motors and pumps, automatic vacuums, skimmers, ladders, steps, and more. Hesselsen's has it all. Do you have a chemical question? Come in for Hesselsen's free computerized water analysis and the widest selection of chlorine and specialty chemicals. With Hesselsen's help, you can clean up any pool problem and swim in sparkling clean water. Let Hesselsen's show you how easy it can be to take care of your swimming pool. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Fox 10 p.m. News is the first primetime local news for the Twin Tiers. Our reporters, Haley and Dante, scour the southern tier to bring you up-to-date news regarding local businesses, economics, and how national decisions impact our area. If you're not near a TV, don't worry. You can also catch our 10 p.m. news live on WYDCTV.com/livestream. Don't miss Big Fox 10 p.m. news on WYDC, on TV, or our website.
If you or one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to some viewer comments. All the Democrats say if Republicans pass the one big, beautiful bill, it will cost Republicans in the midterms. So why aren't they voting to pass it, meaning the Democrats? Are they lying about that? Or are they stupid and don't want to win the midterm elections? That is a good point. If they think the big, beautiful bill will cost Republicans the House, why not get on board for political reasons? I think that's a good point. Comment from a different viewer. Trump just received a clean bill of health, did he not? He absolutely did. As far as I remember from reading those two articles, I don't believe that was brought up in the articles. Yes, it was just recently. Comment from Ken. I did a quick read on limiting the numbers of cows on a farm. before they are required to get a special permit, and then limiting the number of permits allowed. And isn't that what the bill's about, is ending the permits of 700 plus? This is the idea of the two New York City-based New York State lawmakers, and the main reason is to show that they are working hard to stop climate change. Limiting the numbers of cows in New York will reduce methane emissions, saving the world one cow, will say, flatulence at a time. That is what they are proposed, because they believe it's bad for the environment. And so essentially attacking our farming community. And when you live in New York, the milk is just brought to the bodega. It's just there. You don't know how it gets there, and it doesn't matter. All so they can get more votes from they're not going to lose votes from their constituents for not supporting farms, but they gain votes from their constituents in Manhattan and Brooklyn for showing that they are fighting hard against global warming. And then just to tie in with what Ken said, we have one more so far, and we can get more in, but one more bureaucratic name for the potential cow counters that will be necessary and hired at taxpayer expense to count how many cows are in the field. So if you are an outlaw and have 701, the punishment will be strict, undoubtedly. I like this one too. The Big Beautiful Bovine Bureau. I like that one. That'll be the name of it, not the individual, but that's where you will work if you're the cow counter. The Big Beautiful Bovine Bureau. Thank you very much. One thing, just because it was mentioned about the Big Beautiful Bill. Hakeem Jeffries had said on Tuesday, and someone referenced this on the program earlier this week, far-right extremists want to take your health care away. And we've talked about the narrative that the media has been pushing and the Democrats in Washington have been pushing, which is it's the end of health care as we know it. It's the end of Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. You've heard my thoughts on this and many viewers' thoughts on this, that it is the media fear-mongering and terrifying, specifically the elderly, in hopes to secure votes for the Democrat Party. Well, Hakeem Jeffries said that on Tuesday, but the New York Post had a good point on this, saying Democrats can't honestly defend their resistance to the modest Medicaid reforms in the House Republican budget bill, so they've resorted to these types of lies, that it's going to take your health care away. The truth of the matter, and this is important to know because people are pushing this narrative. If you see the protests on the street that are happening almost daily, it's not too many people, 20, 30 people, but they're saying that hands off our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. The bill would require working-aged, able-bodied Medicaid recipients to work, volunteer, or attend school for 80 hours per month. Not 80 hours per week, 80 hours per month. I think presented that way, the American people would overwhelmingly support that Medicaid reform. And that's exactly why the media and politicians in Washington are not, Democrat politicians in Washington are not presenting it in that way. Because again, all is being asked that if you are working-aged, able-bodied Medicaid recipient, you need to work, volunteer, or attend school for just 80 hours per month. That will not take health care away, as Hakeem Jeffries, has said. In fact, it will cut down on waste and fraud and ensure that public funds are going to those who need it most: children, the disabled, the elderly, and pregnant women. Opposing that is madness, so Democrats fall back on fear-mongering lies. We got to take our last break. Get your last-minute comments in so we can read them before the end of the broadcast. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
I've got places to go and I'm feeling free. Controlling my Crohn's means everything to me. Control is everything to me.
And now I'm back in the picture. Feel significant symptom relief at 4 weeks with Skyrizi, including less abdominal pain and fewer bowel movements. Skyrizi helped visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. And with Skyrizi, many were in remission at 12 weeks, at 1 year, and even at 3 years.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or UC.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's disease. Skyrizi is also approved for ulcerative colitis.
Get yours at Current Power Sports in Pine City, New York and Wellsboro, Pennsylvania.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, seeing your last minute texts coming in. The bottom line is the Democrats have lost their minds, says this viewer. They suffer from delusions of grandeur. Thank you very much. Mark writes in and suggests, and by the way, Mark is celebrating a birthday today. He has a name for the cow counter, Bureau of Cow Intelligence. That one works too. And a comment from a different viewer. If the cow counting works like the rest of government oversight, it will not be all that accurate. They will probably count the legs, then divide by 4. You're probably right. And that helps justify their job, even. Look at all the work they have to do. For every law, there are 10 ways around it. I'll divide my 2,100 cow dairy farm in 3 locations. Democrats keep me on my toes. Thank you very much. One quick update that I promised I would mention earlier in the show before we wrap up. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, chairwoman of the Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency, or DOGE, previewed the upcoming House vote to defund PBS and NPR. After years of demanding an end to the use of your hard-earned tax dollars to fund left-wing propaganda, we're finally getting it done, she stated. The first rescission package is heading into the House and includes cuts to NPR and PBS. Public broadcasting has become nothing more than a mouthpiece for the Democrats' woke agenda. They lie about our president, smear conservatives, and push radical gender ideology on our children, all while raking in taxpayer dollars from a nation that overwhelmingly rejects their propaganda no more. This is the beginning of the end of taxpayer-funded fake news. Now, we know NPR is currently suing because they believe that funding is a constitutional right. I believe that is very hard to defend, just like Harvard trying to defend that money is a constitutional right. The taxpayer should fund the anti-Semitism on college campuses, or taxpayers should fund, to use Marjorie Taylor Greene's word, propaganda, and NPR and PBS is being broadcast. Well, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. One last comment from a viewer. Sherry Redstone and the board of Paramount are worried that settling the lawsuit with Donald Trump will leave them open for charges of bribery, especially if the Democrats take over Congress in the midterm and move to launch investigations into the company's action. Yeah, I've heard that they're also worried about the precedent it could set. Trump is demanding now it was originally $20 billion, but I think he'll settle for $20 million in apology. Well, time will tell, but I don't know about holding our breaths waiting for that apology. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you for joining us all week long. Thank you to all of our guests this week. We really do appreciate it. We've got another busy week in store for you next week. So tune in every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you Monday morning bright and early. I look forward to it already. Have a great weekend.
Hard water makes it hard to keep
Keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.